Hello, everybody. My name is Steven Sorensen. I'm here with Smartling. We got an exciting presentation for you today on our new Google Drive integration we've been working on. Let me take a moment to introduce Kelly here. Kelly, you want to take a minute here and introduce yourself and your role here?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Stephen. Hi, everybody. I'm Kelly Francis, and I am a customer success manager here at Smartling.
Great. And I'm the director of product integrations. I feel like sometimes I have the most exciting job in the company. I get to work with all these cool integrations all the time. So it's always something new and exciting. And today we're excited to talk to you about our Google Drive integration. So let's take a look here. Our slides are changing a little slow here. I don't know if it's the internet, but we'll let them catch up here. Do you see it yet, Kelly? The next slide, or is it still on us?
Still on us.
Okay, interesting. Okay, let's swap to this one here and see what happens. Basically, while the slide's loading, we have just a short agenda. We're going to walk you through how to get started with our new plugin. And then we're going to look at essentially like some important things to know, like the supported file types, what are the use cases, and some of the limitations or good to know things. And then we'll walk through a short demonstration and we'll open up to some Q&A. So it's loading the next slide here. Sorry, guys, it's taking a little bit. And so basically, there's a kind of a three-step process we need to go through to get set up with the integration. One is kind of preparing your Google Drive. Inside of your Google Drive, there's some things you need to do to get set up and ready. And then we have the second part is just going into Smartling, creating the new Smartling project, and basically configuring it correctly. And then you go into the request translation, which would be like the last step, right? You want to request some of these files that you've prepared for translation. And we're going to take a look at, break down each one of these steps and kind of talk about them more. Before we do that, I think it would be good to look at what is the current state of how people are translating Google files, and then, kind of what our connector, why we built our connector. So I think, Kelly, if you want to take a few minutes and talk to us about like, what is the current process people are following to translate this stuff, and what are the challenges there?
Yeah, absolutely. So the current process that customers are taking when they need to translate these Google files is basically having to download the file into something like a Microsoft Word doc or an Excel doc, pull that file out of Google, do any file preparation that they need to do, and then upload it back into Smartling for translation. After the translation process, they have to export it back out to that Microsoft file, do the file transition back into the Google Doc. So as you can see, it's a lot of steps, a lot of manual steps that are needed to happen for this.
Yeah, for sure. So that's why we really wanted to build a connector, was make this, process easier, more streamlined, less file management. Nobody wants to go download files and have to upload files and do all of that. So the connector was built to make it easy to create content in Google Drive, request it for translation, and submit it directly into a job without having to do any of this, manual file transferring. So let's kind of talk about what we need to do to get started. So we got to prepare Google Drive. And Kelly, I know you've helped with a couple of customers. What does the process look like here to kind of get started?
Sure. So the process to prepare your Google Drive, it's pretty straightforward. What you'll do is locate a folder in your Google Drive or create a new one, which will be the folder that you're going to connect with Smartling in the project. So this can be a single folder if you just need one folder to house all of your source content that's going to be eligible for translation, or depending on how your company is organized or your team's organized, you may want multiple source content folders. So it's just a matter of assigning the folders, making sure the proper people within your company have access to it. And that's really all it takes for getting ready for getting this up and running.
Yeah, I think, and then from there, you would just create your content. You could, obviously create content to other places in Google Drive and move it into those folders or share it with those folders. And that's what makes it eligible at that point for translation, to select and send for translation. So very good. That's kind of all you really need to do in the Google Drive side, is just get your files, your folders ready and your files ready, and, to submit for translation. And then we need to look at, what do we need to do in Smartling? This is the second part. And we need to set up a new project, which is fairly simple. Most of you have probably created a Smartling project. There's a new one called Google Drive. So you'll set that up, set up your languages, And then you'll need to, select what are the source folders. So Kelly mentioned you need to set up your source folders where you're going to put content. And in our connector, you can set up multiple source folders, so you can actually pull from different places where you want to select content from. So you would configure that, and also you can decide where to deliver the translations back to. So they don't have to always go to the same folder where the source came from. It can deliver to a different folder of your choosing. So you have that option to choose. And then you'll configure languages. It's important to note that Google doesn't have any idea of language. Like, they don't know what file is what, depending on when we submit it. So there's no language property. So we have to have you give us language locale codes or language names that you want for each of these languages. So when we deliver the files, we can append it to the file name, or we can create a subfolder with that language name. And you'll see examples of how that works here. So that's essentially all we got to do, is set up this Smartling project. It's pretty quick and simple. Once you have the project set up, you're going to basically request translation. So Kelly, you want to walk us through that?
Yeah, absolutely. So requesting translation is a pretty straightforward process, especially if you've done it in Smartling before. Basically, what you would do is navigate to the Google Drive tab within the project. It's going to look very similar to how it looks when you're in your drive, as far as the folder and the files within it. You'll go and you'll select the file that you'd like to translate, and click Request Translation under the Actions dropdown. From there, there's a pretty simple wizard that will walk you through giving it a job name, making sure you have the proper languages set up in there, and ultimately requesting translation, which will bundle the content into a job. You'll be able to look that over and then click authorize to basically get it started into your intended workflow.
Right. Yeah. So it submits it into a job where you can apply the workflow and kick off the translation. The other thing to point out here is this is also the similar UI we have for our other connectors. So you'll see it's got the main tab where you go to work with the content. It has the content reflection, the filters to kind of easily sort and filter and find what you're looking for to translate. And then you submit it through this translation request wizard that we have. So pretty standard with some of our other integrations. And that's really all you have to do to get started and request translations. Let's talk real quick about some supported file types. Initially, when we were building the connector, we had built it just to support like the Google Docs and Sheets and Slides. And then as we interviewed more customers, there was more use cases to support other file types. So we've actually built this integration to support all file types out there that the TMS supports. So Smartling supports it. You can send it through this connector and upload it and basically use it as a connector that maybe you don't have for. So we've seen various use cases here, from software localization teams that don't have an integrated process, or a web marketing team working with design documents, things like that. So there's various use cases that we're going to run into as we support the connector. And we'll talk about some of those. So the primary one here, let's talk about the primary one would be translating Google files. And then, we'll translate other file types as kind of the secondary. And a lot of use cases will come from that. So like I said, there may be various teams in your departments that want to translate files that aren't integrated. And then we have an interesting use case that came up recently in some conversations with a couple of customers, is they're using Google Drive as a translation request portal as it's combined with Jira. And we'll walk through kind of what that looks like. Let's take a look at this first one here of translating the Google files. Kelly, I think you wanted to say a couple things about this, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're seeing a lot of customers who rely on Google Drive files within their business for a lot of different reasons. There's many use cases that apply there, but the more people are using these file types, the more we're hearing, hey, we need a way to translate these better. So this is one of the really common use cases that we're seeing. Like we said before, it eliminates a lot of the manual file conversion process that needs to happen without the integration. So this is one of the really common reasons why people are using this.
Yeah. And I would add here, when we first built this, we had a limitation of an API by Google that only limited us to 10 megabyte files, which made it very hard to translate slides, right? Because slides are PowerPoint presentations. They're just large in nature because of the designs. And so we've actually hooked up a supplementary API that Google provides that allows us to work with the larger files. So we're able to support the translation for that very easily. Large files should be supported by this as well. All right, let's take a look here. Other file types. Just wanted to mention here, a couple of use cases we've seen is, sometimes we have software localization teams that aren't able to integrate with, their repo with the Smartling. There may be other, ways they want to try to connect that to automate the process. They can basically use Google Drive as a dumping point where they can dump files. Those can be, sent off for translation, brought back, and then they can integrate with Google Drive with their build process if needed. Obviously, they can use our repo connector or GitHub connector if they have the ability to, but there may be situations where they're not able to. And we also have, marketing teams wanting to translate various documents. We've run across spreadsheets quite a bit, CSV files, and also docx files, just, common marketing teams working with various file types. So we're going to see a lot more use cases come out of this. We're interested in your use cases. I'm sure, a lot of you are thinking of various things and how this could help them. We're interested in learning about those too as you discover them. Let's move into the last use case here. And this may not be for everybody. It's just something interesting. And I thought it was an interesting way to use our new connector is we have, many customers that are using Jira as like a translation request portal where they have a translation team that services other departments in their organization. And so those other departments are their clients and basically getting requests from them to translate their content. And those may be, random files, they may be Google Docs, maybe various things. And so they're using Jira as a way to submit a ticket that has the explanation of what they want, what languages they want, and stuff like that to share the information. But then they're also uploading the files to Google Drive because it's better meant for file repository. And so they're basically providing the link in Jira where those files are. And so typically what they're having to do is download those files from Google, go and upload them to our system, and there's no integration there. But now that we have an integration, we're able to actually make it easier to select that content and send it. So it's really kind of servicing their overall translation request portal here. So it's a very interesting way to use it. Obviously there may be other things there too that you guys are interested in, or you guys may have. And again, we're interested in seeing those too. Things to note. Let's take a quick look at a couple of important things. I think the no translate style is something that's interesting. I think, Kelly, you've worked with quite a few customers here, and seems to be a popular request. Can you tell us about what that is?
Of course, yeah. The no translate style is a custom style that you can create and use within, a Word doc or a Excel doc. Basically, you apply no translate custom style to parts of your content that don't need to be submitted for translation. It's a really good way to sort of prep your file and really only get what you need queued up into Smartling upon upload. So that's, a very common file prep need for docs and sheets.
Yeah, and this has been requested a lot. We currently, so the problem is Google doesn't have this ability to support custom styles. So we can't add this no translate style to the paragraphs or words. So we're looking at other third-party plugins that enable this custom styling on Google. We're doing some research on various plugins to see if there's a reliable method that we can recommend for our customers to do this. Next kind of big thing would be, as we mentioned before, the current process, for people wanting to translate Google Docs is to export them as, Microsoft Office files. That's the only export file type you can use from Google to translate. It's important to note that also applies over API. So when we want to translate the Google Docs and Sheets and stuff, we export those as Microsoft Office formats, which means they're converted from Google to Microsoft Office. We translate the Office format, and then when finished, we can put it back into Google. It requires us to convert it back into Google formats. And so what happens is if you have a pretty complex document with lots of visuals and layout formatting and stuff like that, you may have conversion issues where that stuff's messed up. And so you may, it's recommended on those more complex file formats, you may need to do a publishing step at the end, like a desktop publishing step at the end where you're making corrections to the layout or adjusting it and making sure it looks good before you kind of hand it over to your final party. So that's one of the kind of big things to be aware of there. And then also, we have not hooked up automation yet for this, for brand new documents. So if you want to submit translations, you need to select which files you'd like to submit and then go ahead and select the languages and submit those. We are doing some research to see how automation should work. Should we send it for all languages? Should we send it for subsets of languages? And then how do we get that information? So there's a lot of research going in here to get ready to add that feature. And we're planning on that in the future. We just need to gather more information about the requests. And then we'll be looking to add automation in the future. So those are kind of the big things I would say to know. Let's jump in now. I think let's jump into the demo here. We can demonstrate all of this. So let's see. Let's see. All right, can you see my screen?
I see the main slide.
Oh, let's see where. There we go. Huh. Sorry, guys. I'm not sure where the button went for this. Huh. I don't know what happened to our button to share this. Let's see. We may have to skip on the demo. We may have to record that and post it out a little bit later. Let's jump into some of the Q&A, I think, here. Maybe I'll take a look at that while we're going through some of the questions here. Kelly, did you want to take some of the questions and maybe process one or two of them here? And I'll take a look at this.
Yeah, let's see. Okay, we've got a question from Paul asking, will the deliverable bundle all languages into one single file like Smartling Excel template does now? Okay, yep, so how the Smartling Excel has columns for each language. Is that what you're
That's a great question, yeah.
Yeah.
So right now it doesn't do that. It will do that. We've had that request already come in. And the idea would be it should work. We want the connector to work the same way the drag and drop works. So if you're using the Smartling, Excel template, or you're using a CSV with like custom, declarations in there to like return all of it as one file, we're enhancing the connector to work with that. We don't have the support for it yet, but that will be coming. Yes. I got the screen share working. Let's jump in real quick and look at the demo. Can you see that there, Kelly?
Yeah, looks good. Yep.
Okay, very good. So I'm looking at my Google Drive. So kind of first thing we talked about was getting Google Drive ready. So I've created a new folder called Smartling Translation. And in here, I've created a document. So we have our demo document here that we're going to take a look at, just a requirements document that I worked with. And basically, we're going to want to translate this. So let's close that out. We're going to go ahead and we've got our Google Drive ready. The folders are ready. Files are ready. Let's go create the project in Smartling. In Smartling, I've already created the project because a lot of you have done that. It's a brand new project here. It's not connected yet, so we haven't connected it to Google Drive. And then you can also see there's a connect section in the settings part. So if you go to Google Drive settings, you'll see a sign in with Google here as well. So let's go ahead and sign in, and this is going to authenticate and ask us to authenticate with Google. We have to allow access to, our connector has to allow access to, the certain files and have edit and create permissions for those files, etc. So you allow this, and now we have our little configuration wizard. And if you remember, first thing I said is we have to select what is our source folder, right? Where are we expecting content to be that we want to translate? And I have this in my own drive. It's important we can also support other drives. So not just your own drive, you can use shared drives as well, not just shared folders, but shared drives. So down here, I have the Smartling translation folder, and I'm going to select that because that's my designated folder. And I'm going to select and continue. And then now it's going to ask me, how do I want the translated files to be returned? And I mentioned before, we have to have you create like the language locales or the language names, and we append those to the file names or the subfolders. And this setting applies to that. It means, do you want us, when we turn the files, the translated files, because Google doesn't know about language, do you want us to put the language name that you've created in the file name, or do you want us to create a subfolder with that language name and then put the file in that subfolder without changing the name at all? So that way, the translated files are in the translated folders or in the, the language folders. So there's different ways to do this. I'm just going to go ahead for the demo, include it in the file name so you can see what that looks like. And then we can return translations back to the same as the source folder, which we have as the default setting. But if you want to have translations go to a separate folder so you keep it all kind of separated, which may be a good case in various use cases, you would have to select a different location, and then you would identify the folder. I'm just going to return it to the source for our demo. So I save this, and Here we got a connected project now, and you can see it's given me a link down into that folder that source folder we specified. I also want to call out here that if we had like another source folder for a different team that we're working with, or maybe we're working with a marketing team and a legal team and a support team, they all have different translation requests. We have different folders for them. You can set up all three of those folders in one project. And each of these initial links would take you into each one of those setups. But I only have one for now, so we have this one. But if I had a second one, we'd have a second link here. And you can drill into this. And now you can see there's our document that we're expecting to translate. And you would also be able to drill into folders. If there are additional folders here and folder structure, you have the whole breadcrumb structure. You can navigate in and out. I wanted to take a look here at the settings because we do need to configure a couple things. And the biggest thing here is just the languages, which I've already kind of pre-set up a few of these languages to show you the differences. I have Italian, and I've written out the word Italian. And then for Japanese, I use the language and country locale. And you can see I've kind of mixed it here. And this is important because whatever you put into these boxes, this is important because this is how we deliver the files. So if you want us to change the file name or deliver the files with the translated files with their language name in there, this is what we're actually going to append. So you have control of what gets appended for the file name, or if we create subfolders, we use this text for the subfolder name too. So you have your options on how you want to do that. In some cases, I would recommend using the locale because it's shorter. So if you're using like an appended file name, long language names could get really long. So just have to consider that. And all of these are just editor general settings, no big ones here. Let's go ahead. So we have a configured folder here. Again, if I wanted to add a second folder, which I can do very easily, you can see this. I can add a second one on demand here. And if I go into my drive, I actually have a second one set up for the demo, and it's just called internal translation request. And you can see it's already telling me I have this one configured. So I'm going to select this new one, and now we got two configured. We can do different settings here for this. This one we can do subfolders if we want. So you have the ability to kind of like have different settings for different configurations, all within the same one project. So great, we have our languages configured. We have our folders configured. Now we're ready to just request translation. So I'm going to go here, navigate. So you can see I have both folders set up now, and I can navigate into each one. My expected documents in this folder. And on the left, you have other ways of filtering too. So if you have a whole bunch of file types mixed together, you can sort by file type. You can easily search the Google Docs, and they can return matches. And it's a great search API. And then you have modification dates to kind of filter stuff by modified date and stuff like that. So essentially, kind of similar to other integrations, you have this ability to select this, request translation, and create a new job here for our system. We're going to go ahead and do, let's do Italian. And we're going to save job and continue. And this will essentially export out the file. Remember, this is a Google Doc, so it's going to be exported out as a docx file. And then we will import it into Smartling as a docx file, and we'll go through the translation process. So now it's getting put into a job. We have, total source word calculations here and all of kind of cost calculations up front you can do. And then you apply your workflow. So I can authorize directly from here, or I can actually save for later and have, a translation manager maybe that applies workflow, go apply workflow. For our demo, I'm just going to apply Google machine translation, and I'm going to authorize this. And that's going to go kick off the job inside of Smartling. So at this point, you requested translation, it's kicked off. Now you're just waiting, and you can get translation statuses, directly from within here. So if we refresh this and we look at this document, we can see it's completed already. It already finished with machine translation, but you have the ability to also see individual language completion percentages, progress completion percentages. It's all really helpful to give you like real-time visibility of, how completed that document is. Let's take a look at the job still. I want to take a look at it. Here's our new job. We can see it's completed. We just did a quick machine translation, so it's fast. Let's go ahead and edit the cat tool. I wanted to show you kind of the translator experience. And it's important to note here, because we're translating and working with Microsoft Office files, we have visual context for those files, which is great. We can leverage that right here with the connector. And as we translate, we're going to have visual context natively with each of these file types that have it. So out of the box, really good visual context for working with Google Docs and Google Slides and so forth. Essentially, let's close this down. And now translation's completed. And it's probably already been delivered back into my Google Drive. So here you can see I've got the Italian version, and I actually have Italian appended to the end of the name. And again, this could be a language code, or it could be a subfolder. We could have created subfolders here. So if I open the Italian document, now I have, my Italian completed requirements document, and I can share that with whoever. The other way the subfolders work, I wanted to kind of show you here. If we had created subfolders for German and Portuguese, they would look like this, and translated files would go inside of here. And they would have the same name as the original file. We don't change the file name unless you ask us to. So that's kind of important to know. We have about 5 more minutes. That concludes the demo. So I think let's take a few more questions here. Kelly, have you been able to take a look and see what our next question is, maybe?
Yeah, actually, we have some really good questions. One is actually related to the subfolders you were just talking about. They're asking if it's possible to add subfolders after setting up the initial drive source folder, or do they need to know that structure before setting up the drive?
If you set up like a parent folder and it doesn't have any folders in it in Google, and then you install the connector, if you go then add in Google, add new folders, our connector will pick those up and you'll be able to navigate those. You won't have to reinstall or anything. So it'll pick up new folder structure automatically.
Perfect. And then another good question came in. If you put something through, say, a Google Doc through translation, and it's actively being translated, what happens if somebody goes and makes changes to the source file during?
Great question. Yeah. So great question. They can go modify the source. And at that point, right, you have a new document, new version, and all this current stuff is in translation. That's going to stay in translation. So we don't interrupt the current translation process, because you may have only made a few changes. You probably still need most of that translation. You can request it midstream though. So if it's in progress, you request it midstream, you create a new job, and we only upload the changed or new strings into the new job. So that it will require both jobs to be completed, so that it gets the bulk of the translations from the first one that was submitted, and the new stuff would finish from the second job. So you're able to continue translating, and we keep it separated on purpose.
Perfect. And then another one was asking about the no translate style. So if Google doesn't support no translate, does that mean they can't use Google Sheets that have this style in it?
If you take a Google Sheet, you can't have styles in it in the first place because it doesn't support styles. If you have a Microsoft Excel file that you've taken and you've added no translate styles to, and then you've uploaded that into Google Drive, and then you're going to send that Microsoft Excel file through the connector with the no translate, that will work because it's a Microsoft Office file. We're not relying upon Google Sheets. So again, Google Sheets and Google Docs don't have the ability to add custom styles. So we can't apply custom styles to them. That's why it doesn't work. But yes, you could support it through, so if you have a docx, an Excel, or a PowerPoint file that you add custom styling to, and then you upload it to Google Drive and you want to send it through our connector, you can do that.
Perfect. Let's see. Got a few more questions queued up in here. Somebody's asking about Adobe Creative Cloud files. Will I need to convert Adobe Creative Cloud files before uploading to Google Drive? And will this work with PCs?
Yeah, great question. So for the Adobe Creative Cloud, we have plugins for those. And generally, I would recommend using the plugins to translate those files because we don't have native file parsers for like AI files for Illustrator or INDD for InDesign. We have IDML for InDesign, which you can use, but that takes some preparation. But the native file formats, like Photoshop files and those, we don't have native parsers for those. When you upload your content, you can't upload those to TMS. So again, to kind of reiterate, you can upload any files through the connector as long as we have an actual parser for it. So those would not be supported. I would recommend using our plugins for those.
All right. And it looks like we're just about up on time. So that'll be the last question. Thank you, everyone, for all those really good questions. Really, really helpful for everybody.
Yeah. Thank you all. Have a great day. Thanks you guys for joining us. Have a great one.
Thank you. Bye-bye.